Thanks for tuning into Morning Live. Now, the annual crime statistics released by police management in Parliament yesterday have been widely attributed to an apparent failure on the part of the South African Police Service to fight crime. Opposition parties in Parliament have expressed concern at the fact that the murder rate is reported to be at its highest in 10 years, with an average of 57 people being murdered each day in our country. Gender-based violence is also of particular concern, with sexual offences having increased by 4.6%. And let's get some reaction now. We're joined in studio by the National Police Commissioner General Khehla Sithole. Thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you.
I wish it was under better circumstances, but let's just talk first and foremost about when the report was brought to you, showing what the statistics were indicating. What was your reaction to it?
Well, firstly, remember our duty is to ensure the safety of our communities, and that's what we are committed to. So I was obviously worried about the safety of the communities, and more on the two crimes, because murder and gender-based violence are crimes of fear. But it's not a question of looking at the statistics only. It's more about what are you doing about them.
So what are we doing about them? What is the South African Police Service doing about it? Because if you think about contact crime going up in all 9 provinces,
yes.
and you know, South Africans are already very fearful because of the crime situation in the country. And looking at these latest statistics, the question then becomes, what is the South African Police Service doing about this?
Okay, firstly, from the turnaround vision of SABC, when crimes spiral up, specific crimes like maybe murder as well as gender-based violence, I think last year it was the highest. So you immediately go on stabilization interventions. So we immediately conducted an analysis, tax intelligence. We look at which are the hotspots, and we then put in place the stabilization interventions. But at the same time, we conducted root cause analysis, because it's not only the crime, the root causes thereof are also equally important. Then we decided that, okay, while we stabilize crime, we also need to link it to the normalization process, which is where we bring in all other relevant stakeholders to play their role. And an example of this is the environmental design factors, which makes policing first difficult, and they create various opportunities for criminal modus operandi.
What does that mean in layman's terms? What do you say?
What I'm trying to say is, firstly, we've got a special development, you've got informal settlements. So the special development, it's growing, and while it is growing, you've got a geographical spread of your communities. Now, if there are no roads and there's even no ablution facilities in those areas, when there's no roads, there's areas now where I can take you where police must park the van 500 meters away and walk on foot to go and attend a complaint of the communities. There's areas where you've got no ablution facilities, women has to go to the bush, and you imagine how dangerous is that. Then there's dark areas where there's no high mast lights and all that. Those are critical environmental design factors. Now we say, while we stabilize crime, we take the criminals head on, let's also address equally the factors that contribute towards those crimes. And one of the keys is the moral fiber, which is deteriorating. And we then saying to each and every party to fighting crime, let's work together, let's come up with a moral fiber investment strategy so that we repair the already injured spiritual, as human and spiritual values.
I think as South Africans, we can accept that this will have to be a collective effort to actually, arrest the scourge of crime. But obviously, the SAPS cannot be absolved of playing their part and doing their duty, because they are, in the end, the ones who are responsible for law enforcement in the country. But I want to talk about the murder rate going up. And one of the most disturbing things there was the number of murders committed by children.
Yes.
Can you just talk to us about that, please?
Yeah, look, the murders committed by children, it's more of a moral fiber issue. And firstly, it talks to family units and family structures. And then it talks to school, because these are the areas where these murders actually take place. Such murders need to be prevented. But in preventing those murders, remember, the police would not take responsibility for family structures. But what we're then saying, let us work together with all the relevant stakeholders. And then we look at these collapsed family structures. And we look at these children. Look, we also have instances where the number of the number of women below the age of 18 who are becoming parents. Then you've got other children bringing up other children. So in such areas, we need to be working together with all the other relevant stakeholders. And children, remember, you cannot necessarily treat them as hard criminals and put them in jail. You rather need to rehabilitate them so that you are also able to manage them that is properly, and because they are the future of the country. Yes. So
and whilst I accept that, Commissioner, does this mean that as the South African Police Service, given all these other attributing factors, does this mean that as the South African Police Service, you are failing in this fight against crime in South Africa?
We're not failing yet. Remember, criminals, you've got career criminals who wake up every day. They report on duty, and their duty is modus operandi design. So they will exploit this type of crime. We must respond. Then they will move to another crime. You'll get your multi-dimensional criminal, who's a modus operandi shift criminal. And I was giving you an example. Last year it was the cash in transit heists. We responded, we stabilized them, and we're no longer talking about them. This year is murders and gender-based violence. And I can talk to you about 3 provinces. In KZN, murders has been rife. We've stabilized them. And we came up with interventions there. Western Cape, as I'm speaking, because that's not part of the current stats, we've stabilized them with the current stabilization intervention. So here is also a question of responding. We have now, we've deployed both modus operandi analysts and intelligence. And as I'm speaking, we are also reinstating specialized units. So that one of them that we're looking at is like murder and robbery unit, so that we can have a dedicated approach to responding to murder. Gender-based violence, we've reviewed the anti-rape strategy, and we have come up now with a sexual gender-based violence strategy. And there, we are also having a dedicated approach. We have the FCS unit. The performance of this unit is almost extraordinary. But it's not enough to respond to the current call. We have revamped this unit. We are actually upgrading it. We even including a cold case capacity within the unit, so that we bring back all the cases that women are complaining about, which were not given necessary attention. So it's a question of responding.
And it's all good, in rhetoric, but we have a situation. The current reality is that in South Africa, every day, seven women are killed. you have a situation whereby the South African Police Service has for the longest time been accused of being insensitive and sometimes even unwilling to deal with this in a meaningful way. Now, the Minister announced that the Family Violence and Sexual Offences Unit, that will be increased countrywide. But the question is, why now? This crisis has existed existentially for quite some time. And yet we still talk about women having to go to a police station after they are raped and suffer secondary victimization. No rape kits available. These are things we hear every day. Why now? Why is it a crisis now? Is it because, once again, these stories have caught the headlines? The headlines, I should say.
Okay, maybe let me also extend further to what the Minister said. I think he said, we are now going to sit and look at which strategies has worked before that might have been changed. And then, but further to that, what I'm then saying you in the question of why now, the personnel plan of the organization from 2012 up to now has scaled down. And if I'll give you like the figures, when the population was at 47 million, the establishment was at 199,000. And presently is at 190,000. The population is at 58.3 million. So,
in other words, you do not have enough people on the ground to deal with the number of people in the population.
I think the population has outgrown us. And therefore, we have changed the approach in terms of the personnel plan now. We said the personnel plan must respond to the growing population. And we also have the special development spread that is across the country, which requires service delivery access to the communities, especially women who would have been raped or abused in any other manner. That's a call that the more the special development spread, then we need to have more police stations in order to respond. Now, if you build more police stations, we must have personnel to man them, those pathways. So we've reviewed the personnel plan. You had the President pronouncing the 7,000 increase now, recruitment, that is strategy, every financial year. Apart from that, we're looking at other measures. We're downsizing the strategic part of the organization. We're taking the resources down to production level so that we increase the capacity at the police stations. Then we are also looking at other instances like contracting the services of those old police who are still willing to assist and who have the capacity. Then we're improving on our training again so that the quality is improved. I think we're currently now working on putting together a detective academy, which should start functioning in the next financial year. So I think as the situation change, you also need to change the strategies and align. And the situation is created by modus operandi development and modus operandi advancement. Now, as modus operandi change, it will then answer your question, why now? Because the modus operandi has changed.
Commissioner, it is 6:30, so we're into headline news time, but I have to ask you one final question.
Yes.
How are you dealing with the criminals within your own ranks at the South African Police Service? And how do you plan on addressing the trust deficit between the police and the communities?
Okay, thanks very much. I think this particular question, one, within SABC, we've got the anti-corruption strategy. But we also have IPIT, who is assisting us from an independent position, looking at the police conduct. Then we do have internal processes, which is the disciplinary code. I've decided we stamp authority against corruption within the service. I'm sure you might have seen, I think up to now we've taken steps against senior generals in the police and who are committing crimes. I think yesterday we arrested 4 of our own for corruption. What I'm trying to say is I have a relationship with correctional services, and that relationship is based on the uniform. I give you my uniform, you become a member, you serve the public with dignity and pride. Or if you change, I negotiate with correctional services, we exchange the uniform, give you the orange one, then I take my uniform back. So that's the approach. And to build confidence to the public, we stick to the service charter. We engage them. They tell us what is the service specification that they require from us. We treat them with respect because we're not doing them a favor. And that will then improve the confidence. We've got a community policing strategy, and we are implementing it, and we're mobilizing each and everyone, bringing on board so that they work together with the police. And our police, I think the cooperation with the community is enforced even through the disciplinary code of the organization.
Well, thank you so much. And that is, of course, our National Police Commissioner General Khehla Sithole. Over to you, Leanne.